Today on Landline, producing what's claimed to be the world's first verified carbon-positive cotton.
We've got every record of every single pass, every single operation, every single input that's gone into every field for the last 20 years.
Hemp hopes
Still needs a bit more investment, but we're getting there. And there are some big players coming in now and a lot of money coming into the industry.
and the Bush Flying School changing locals' idea of isolation.
If you can do it all here, why move away? You know, a lot of people come here to make money, so you're in a perfect location to do so.
Hello, I'm Pip Courtney. A large-scale cotton operation in New South Wales says it's producing the world's first verified carbon-positive cotton. It's also invested heavily in renewable energy to slash emissions from fuel and fertiliser use. Using the same tracking technology as passports, cotton grown there can be tracked anywhere in the world to verify its carbon-friendly credentials. In a good season, Keetar, a 26,000 hectare farm near Moree in New South Wales, produces 80,000 bales of cotton. After harvest, the cotton is sent to the nearby Wathaga gin. Keetar's owners, Danielle and David Statham, own a 50% share. From farm to gin, there are multiple carbon emission pressure points.
We've been measuring our emissions now for over 5 or 6 years. 80 to 85% are in two products. One's fertiliser and the other one's fuel. They're the two biggest components of our emissions. Nitrogen is your biggest emission. That's the number one. Number two is diesel. So it is the second biggest emission on a farm.
So you could get to zero on both?
Can get to zero on both. That's the plan.
To reduce the cotton and cropping operations' carbon footprint, the Stathams are investing in renewable energy to radically cut diesel, electricity and fertiliser use. A 9-megawatt solar farm with battery storage is the first of a 3-stage solar project. The gin used to have an electricity bill nudging $1 million a year.
We're keeping net zero at the point of connection for the cotton gin for around 14 hours a day. The plant can power the cotton gin and still export 3.3 megawatts to the grid. It's like having your own private power station to cover your electricity costs.
In August, the Stathams and a green energy company received a grant of nearly $36 million from the New South Wales Government to build an ammonia and green hydrogen plant next to the gin. It will produce low-emission green replacements for diesel and fertiliser.
And it's a showcase for what other valleys can do. It's not just Moree, it's the eastern seaboard of Australia. We can produce our own fuel and fertiliser. We can control our own destiny instead of worrying about wars and things you can't control. We use approximately 2 million litres of diesel today. The hydrogen plant will produce 1.5 million.
Replacing urea fertiliser with anhydrous ammonia will be an emission game changer.
Urea is 46% nitrogen. Anhydrous ammonia is 82% nitrogen. Urea is granular and it's a solid. It's a byproduct of petroleum. So therefore it's got a large emission factor around its production. Anhydrous ammonia produced from renewable energy has a zero carbon emission in the manufacturing of it.
Every farmer's dream, not having a fertiliser bill.
100%. My biggest dream.
David's confident the factory will open by June 2025. It won't make Keetar carbon positive because the Stathams claim it already is. David says using regenerative farming practices to preserve soil moisture has increased carbon levels. Carbon's money now.
Carbon's money. You can say that again.
For 20 years, soil tests were done in every field every second year. While early reports provided soil carbon numbers, little attention was paid. Now customers are demanding that sort of data, and they have it. And carbon is now top of mind?
100% top of mind. The European Union are leading it, and we're getting customers from all around the world wanting to come to farm, understanding what we do, and pull those carbon credits that we create on this farm through the supply chain and into their balance sheet.
You're not going to sell them?
Not selling them, no. Transfer, insetting is the direction I'm heading.
Insetting is where farmers keep credits for the additional carbon they build and use it to offset their emissions.
A lot of biomass going back into the soil.
But you need proof to trade in the climate-smart economy, and that has to come from independent certifiers. The Stathams use a UK satellite carbon measuring company and a Brisbane advisory and verification business. So will the soil testing and the satellite pictures help you prove to your customers that you're not greenwashing, you're not mucking about?
100%. Like, I haven't done this for money. I've done it because I'm interested in the soil. I want to do things well. And the people that come here, they want rigour. They want rigour around the numbers, and that's one thing that we've got. We've got every record of every single pass, every single operation, every single input that's gone into every field for the last 20 years.
So if they want data, you can show it to them?
Oh, exactly right.
Being carbon positive is just part of the Stathams' new approach. They've branded their cotton and can track it anywhere in the world after it leaves the gin. They say it's the world's only climate-positive traceable cotton.
We're going through from a really nice knit from Portugal to a woven.
For Danielle, a former fashion designer, it all started with a question in a paddock.
And then into a cord. I couldn't understand why I couldn't use that cotton in my own garments.
The reason was, once their cotton left the country, the Stathams lost track of it.
Most cottons from different regions have different quality parameters, and then they're blended at spinning mills, and that's where you lose visibility of what happens.
Danielle found Paul Stenning, the inventor of identification technology used in paper for banknotes and passports. He just happened to be working on tracking cotton.
I still remember the day I went into David in the office and I said, I found something and I have to go to Germany and I have to go and see this guy. We've commercialised that product for him and taken that out to what we see now over the last 5 years. And he's now still with us in research and development.
Mr. Stenning invented a way of blending rare earth pigments invisible to the naked eye into cotton at the gin. There's about 400 grams of pigment per bale, and it stays with the cotton for life.
The pigments operate in an infrared wave band, and we're actually able to create unique signatures for each of our customers.
Strong signals, 4 to 5 bar.
The innovation's called Fibre Trace, which the Stathams have named the new company they co-own. A Bluetooth scanner physically confirms authenticity in real time. When cotton is scanned in and out of spinning, weaving, garment manufacturing and retail sites, the data, including a geolocation, is sent to the cloud.
Within the platform, the pigment actually identifies the signature of that pigment and who's been assigned to that customer. And then we look at the intensity to make sure that the intensity signals are matching at each point within the supply chain.
The signal is 100% here at the gin and weakens if the cotton is diluted.
In the spinning process, if they mix that with different cottons, we can actually tell that there's been a reduction in that tensity and then can notify the brand that there's actually been some blending, authorised or unauthorised, and then they can actually get in real time and actually stop it before that end product is actually a product and it's too late.
With world trade entering a new world of emissions accounting and legislation, more governments and food and fibre buyers will require green digital credentials. So literally this now has a passport just like I've got a passport.
This has a passport just like you've got a passport, and every stage that this bale moves through, we will know in real time where this product is. If you're not doing this in the future, you won't attract a premium or maintain the premium that Australian growers get.
We have Rod and Gun coming on board, Anaconda taking shape, and then there's a lot of other brands that are in the pipeline.
The Stathams say they're paid a premium because global brands have made sustainable sourcing pledges, and there's not much verified sustainable cotton around.
We're seeing from $20 to $60 a bale in that range, subject to supply and demand. Extra.
Yeah. The Maggie Marilyn brand, that was the Australian Fashion Week.
In 2018, the couple sold 2,000 bales of Good Earth cotton. This year, they'll sell 80,000, and 4 growers have joined as suppliers.
That's good.
We've repurposed the buildings, so...
Being able to supply at scale has put the brand on the fashion industry's radar.
Come through, Pip.
Danielle renovated an old machinery shed to give visiting fashion executives a cellar door type experience.
They're used to being in a space where there is a little bit of luxury and comfort. People are coming from all parts of the world. They're not coming for a couple of hours just to sit in a tin shed and swelter in the middle of a cotton season. Here we have the lecture theatre.
The lecture theatre isn't just for customers. Staff are continually updated on farm production figures and sustainability and technology goals and advances.
And to continue to remain relevant within the market, and I hope you all understand that.
Unusually, these staff know how many and which brands are buying the cotton they help grow. And where there's fashion, there are gift bags. This time to celebrate a T-shirt deal with Country Road.
Thank you.
Danielle's expertise is in fashion, marketing and cotton, and David's is technology, data and cotton. As a team, they say they're ready as climate makes agriculture more challenging.
This is 100% coming at us like a bullet, and it's not going away. You know, the climate change debate around the world, and we're sitting in the box seat to do something about it.
I think we're foolish to think that agriculture and commodity trading is not going to be disrupted when everything else has been disrupted.
Salinity can turn productive farmland into a wasteland. In Western Australia, more than 1 million hectares is affected. But one farmer has decided to work with his salt problem by growing salt-tolerant plants for restaurants around the country. Bunbury's Brianna Fiore has the story.
David Thompson grows sheep and wheat near Katanning, about 300 kilometres southeast of Perth in Western Australia. But like many wheat belt farmers, he's had to face growing salinity in his soil.
Well, salt kills everything in its path. It's a really silent killer. It spreads and kills everything in its way, whether it's natural vegetation or introduced grasses and cropping.
And it's continuing to spread. It affects more than 1 million hectares in Western Australia.
The advice has been to put a fence up and plant trees in the salt areas, and then try and buy more land that's not affected with salt. But it's spreading at about 20,000 hectares a year, so it's very hard to escape it.
But a random question prompted a new farming and business opportunity.
Well, we were supplying restaurants with our dry-aged mutton, and we had a chef rang me and said, "Have you got any saltbush?" So I went and picked some saltbush and sent it to his restaurant.
Saltbush grows in the tough, salty conditions. David soon discovered there were other salt-tolerant plants like sea kiss, samphire, carcella, heartleaf ice plant and sea purslane. He began growing them and expanded to build a greenhouse to increase production. David and his wife Sue say the venture value adds to their merino business.
That looks beautiful. This is actually my favourite one that I probably use the most in the kitchen.
What started as a 500-gram order for one restaurant has turned into a massive enterprise, with David and Sue's product now being shipped right across Australia.
Well, most of our product, probably about 80%, goes to Sydney, so we use a couple of wholesalers in Sydney and they distribute to a number of chefs through Sydney. We've got Fire Door, we've got Key Restaurant, and then also Brisbane. Brisbane's another big market for us, so it's all a bit of a blast, actually.
The orders are packed at a facility in Malaga, northeast of Perth.
3 kilos or?
No, 2.5.
2.5,
yeah.
okay.
Lance McLeod has been involved in the operation since day one.
It's unique, and I think WA suffers from a huge dry land salinity issue, so if we can capitalise on using the degraded land as a resource, educate people about the environmental effect and what we can grow from this degraded land, I think that'll be fantastic. It's unique because all our products are halophytes, so they're adapted to growing in salt-affected land or using salt water. So it's not your traditional farming techniques. We have to look for products or plants that are suited to those conditions. So, and not a lot of people know about saline agriculture, so it's very unique.
Lance says the salty edibles, which sell for around $30 to $45 a kilo, are more common overseas, but hopes more Australians will discover them here.
There are very few small producers that do part of the range that we do, but not to this scale and not authentic in terms of actually going directly in salt land and pumping out salt water specifically to irrigate plants with salt water. So as far as I know, our setup is authentic and unique in Australia. Europe is probably one of the biggest consumers. There are farms there that produce in excess of 250 tonne of samphire in a season. So it's more widely accepted in supermarkets over there, particularly samphire as a side vegetable as opposed to generally a garnish, which is what most of the products get used for.
Melissa Palinkis is one of Western Australia's top chefs and regularly serves the salty morsels at her New York-style deli in Fremantle. Today, she's pairing some of the plants with emu.
And I've made a little rub with some native wattle seed and black pepper. And so we're just going to flat grill that. So one of the first things I started doing was pickling. So pickling off saltbush and samphire and using them as garnishes, just like a pickled onion or something like that. I'd start pickling things and using them as something to finish with. Now we use them as greens. We will just stir fry them. They adapt to Asian flavours. So just say you've got some warrigal greens, we can add some ginger, some garlic, some oyster sauce, soy sauce, toss that in a wok and just serve that as a greens, or you could serve it with butter. So cook them down in butter and garlic and serve it with some meat. Samphire is something that you can cook, like serve with fish, really nice with fish. Seafood, cooked in butter like a side dish or a side vegetable. So that's more like a sea vegetable, that works really well with fish. So we've got warrigal greens, we have sea blight, sea purslane, we've got samphire, and we have ice plant. Imagine this just spinach in a pan. What they do is they add a little bit of texture because they burst in your mouth, some of them, like the samphire and the purslane. So you've got this beautiful popping kind of texture going on. They love it. The customers like it because they're getting something different. Especially when you do the little stir-fried greens, they're like excited to try something different. And I think from that perspective, real avid foodies will go out and if they see something like that on the menu, they'll go for it because they want to know what it tastes like. We're always looking for the next best thing. We're always looking for another ingredient to test ourselves and push ourselves with.
David and Sue would like to see the greens being used in homes, not just restaurants. Sue says she's been cooking the plants to accompany meat dishes to the enjoyment of her family.
It's really crisp and crunchy and salty with a slight bitterness.
Testing is now underway to find if the plants have any health benefits that could provide opportunities in pharmaceuticals. David says it's all about adapting to the environment.
I mean, the salinisation of the world is happening everywhere, but nowhere quicker than here. And it's a difficult problem to fix. I mean, it's taken a long time for it to become a problem, and it's going to take a long time to repair it. But we live in the driest state, on the driest inhabited continent on the planet, and our biggest loss of land is due to too much moisture. That moisture or that water is salty. So let's work out how we can use that to grow products. And if we can do that, it's a win-win for the environment and the farmer and the consumer.
Still to come on Landline, Australia's industrial hemp industry takes a major step forward.
its versatility. There's such a wide range of uses. Of course, we're going to be looking at what's most profitable, but that versatility is very appealing.
Hello, I'm Jane Norman. A week of extreme weather has wrought havoc on the eastern states. In Gippsland, towns were flooded after days of unrelenting rain. Farmers were forced to move dairy cattle to higher ground, while others have lost millions of dollars worth of crops. Victoria's southern rural water is facing questions over its management of the Glen Maggie Dam. On the 14th of October, Australians will vote in the nation's first referendum in more than 2 decades to enshrine an Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander voice in the Constitution. To succeed, a double majority is required. That means a majority of states and a majority of voters must approve the change. Politically, this referendum is contested, split largely along party lines. But before we get into that, Dana Morse explains what the Voice to Parliament is and where the proposal came from.
The proposal for an Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander voice is a simple one, born out of years of grassroots advocacy that led to the Uluru Statement from the Heart. The statement is 440 words and calls for 3 things to improve the lives of Indigenous people: voice, treaty and truth. But what is the voice and what would it do? Firstly, it would recognise Indigenous Australians as the first peoples of this country in the Constitution, the nation's founding document. Secondly, it would create a body to give advice to the government and Parliament on policies and laws that affect First Nations people. Putting the voice in the Constitution would mean that a future government of the day couldn't remove it without another referendum. Campaigners for the Yes case say that's essential. They argue the current system leads to short-term policy making and has done little to close the gap in Indigenous life expectancy, health, wealth and education.
This referendum is about positive empowerment, recognition through a voice.
But no campaigners say the voice isn't the answer to solve these problems.
We are here about building a liberal democracy of freedoms and liberties and equality, not dividing our nation by race.
If the referendum passes, there will be more consultation with Indigenous communities about the design of the voice, such as the funding and the makeup of the body. The Parliament would then make the final decision. But for now, it's up to the Australian people to decide the outcome of the voice referendum on October 14.
Cos Samaras is a pollster and a former Labor Party strategist and has been closely tracking voter intentions in the lead up to the referendum. He joined me earlier.
Looks like the support for the voice is around 40% across all polls as an average. So it looks very difficult for those who are supporting the voice and voting yes. It looks unlikely that they will get that critical sort of 52.5% as an average across the country, which will get you that double majority.
And what are the polls suggesting about voter intentions in perhaps metro areas compared with rural and regional areas of the country?
There's definitely a divide. So support for the voice is very, very significant in the inner parts of our large cities, and it drops off as we head out. So you head out through outer suburban cities across the country and support starts to slip away. Once we go into rural and regional parts of Australia, support for it plummets pretty quickly.
And we know, obviously, to succeed here, a majority of states need to vote yes. What is the state-by-state polling looking like at the moment?
Very clear that Queensland and Western Australia are definitely no. Then it's a question of whether the support for the voice in urban centres like Sydney and Melbourne, Hobart and Adelaide is significant enough to offset that regional a lack of support, so to speak. It's looking pretty difficult to see whether the voice will win any state at this stage. I think Victoria is the only one, maybe New South Wales, but it's looking pretty grim.
Do you think that there is enough time to stage such a large turnaround?
People have not tuned in, and that plays out in a couple of ways. The first one is obviously it may impact turnout. In terms of motivation, as in who's really motivated to turn up to vote, it's usually yes voters. So we go back to that dynamic of non-turnout, lack of motivation, lack of awareness. It could hurt the no camp. Flip side to all of that is, again, because no one's really tuned into it, they're not absorbing the soft voters are not absorbing advertisements from either camp. And so they'll turn up to the polling booth with very little knowledge of what is being proposed. And what we do know is when you turn up to the polling booth and you don't know what it's about, you're not going to be voting yes for something you do not understand.
All right, Cosmaris, well, we thank you very much for your insights.
No problem. Thank you.
And finally, droving is a rare sight nowadays, but not in outback Queensland. Graziers there are moving thousands of Brahman cattle along the long paddock, a 1,200-kilometre stretch from Julia Creek to Tambo. Bill Little and his team of 3 are taking advantage of the good feed on the stock route while cattle prices are low and enjoying the stunning scenery and sunsets along the way. And that's Landline News.
Hemp has long been proclaimed a wonder plant and for just as long has been decried as a narcotic. But it's the fibre, not the leaf or the seeds, that is now attracting some serious investment, as Landline's Tim Lee explains.
At Wentworth, New South Wales, where the Darling River meets the mighty Murray, a beast of a machine, a 510 horsepower harvester, is chewing its way through a 3 to 4 metre tall crop.
This is hemp, grown as a trial under irrigation on a laser graded field.
It's very marginal ground where we are, and we needed something that's a bit robust, and I've seen it as being a robust plant to grow on heavy clay soils and improve our soil structure as well.
Gavin Hopkins grew only 40 hectares because it's a very difficult crop to harvest and process. The machine needs to be especially powerful and fitted with tungsten steel blades because it's chopping through one of the toughest plants on the planet. The hemp plant is amazingly rigorous. It can grow up to 6 metres tall in a matter of months. It's also extraordinarily strong. It's up to 6 times stronger than steel. And of course, it's way more environmentally friendly.
A lot of people have got no idea how tough this crop is. This crop is probably one of the toughest things I've ever had to deal with in farming in all my life, as far as getting it to a point where it's marketable on farm.
Finding an effective, efficient way to harvest hemp stalks has long been an impediment to growing it. After 4 years of effort, Gavin Hopkins believes he's achieved that long-awaited breakthrough.
It's very exciting. We've been 4 years, I can finally see the light. That's what I can see now. It's starting to move.
Recent interest in hemp has centred mostly on the seed, a proven health food, high in beneficial omega-3 acid. Until 2017, there were some restrictive, outdated laws around growing hemp in Australia.
Industrial hemp and marijuana are chalk and cheese. They're very different. They look the same, or look very similar, and that's the reason why there's been so much animosity towards industrial hemp.
Now you can buy locally grown hemp seed from the supermarket.
And the focus has moved to hemp stalks, what's called industrial hemp.
Industrial hemp is predominantly used for manufacturing processes of the fibre and the herd.
Hemp is cannabis with less than 1% THC. With more than 1% THC, we refer to it as either marijuana, because everyone knows what that is, or high THC cannabis. So there is that distinction, and we have a neutral position on high THC cannabis. We are focused clearly and solely on hemp and how it can be developed as a mainstream agricultural industry for Australian farmers.
Long ago, when these ancient Grecian temples were new, hemp was already old in the service of mankind. For centuries prior to about 1850, all the ships that sailed the western seas were rigged with hempen rope and sails.
For centuries, until synthetics took over after World War II, the hemp stalk's outer fibre was used to make exceptionally strong ropes. And the inner core, known as the herd, was used to make a very robust building material called hempcrete. Till recently, finding a cost-effective way to separate the fibre from the core has been another impediment to the hemp fibre industry. Gavin Hopkins and his business partner have carefully re-engineered a harvester, which means a crop can be processed in the paddock where it grows.
So Gavin, this is the end result. What have we got here?
This is the fibre that we've grown, which we've actually separated with our decortication system, which is what's used in a lot of car panels and plastics. And this is the herd that's the centre part of the plant that actually goes into the building, which is a pretty amazing product.
Industrial hemp has been identified as an emerging crop by AgriFutures, the federal government agency that identifies and finances the research and development of Australian rural industries.
So we've got industrial hemp variety trials across every state and the Northern Territory in Australia, so 9 sites. So some of our states have 2 sites in each. And we're essentially looking at varietal differences within these different regions, so from the north, central and southern regions. And we want to understand their viability in those different regions, and the timing of sowing is also really important. So some varieties are already showing to be, more suited to our northern climatic conditions as opposed to our southern, and vice versa.
They're not expansive trials, but we do know now at what latitudes some varieties will grow and things like that.
Those trials are in their 2nd year. By the end of 2024, they'll have a better idea of what varieties grow well and where.
We should be able to make very clear recommendations to current growers and potential growers about what varieties are suited to which climatic conditions.
So why the excitement around hemp?
Its versatility. There's such a wide range of uses. Of course, we're going to be looking at what's most profitable, but that versatility is very appealing.
The Australian Hemp Council Fibre Forum, held in Geelong, Victoria, recently brought together leading hemp industry figures from Australia and New Zealand. Till now, most have been working in isolation.
And these businesses and projects were all working in isolation of each other. And I thought it really is essential that we bring people together and get the conversation amongst them so that there's a clear understanding of who's doing what, and also to enhance the development of collaboration in the industry. But other goals included were raising the profile of the industry so that we can further engage with government and community.
The conference heard of many recent advances. The Hemp Council calculates there's $50 million already invested in the industry.
Still needs a bit more investment, but we're getting there. And there are some big players coming in now and a lot of money coming into the industry.
The council predicts it'll reach $200 million within 2 years. In the building sector, interest in hemp and the number of houses built from it is rapidly growing. At last count, more than 300 nationwide. Hemp is an environmentally friendly replacement for concrete.
We shred it up into that, mix that with lime and water.
Landline met David Bryan a few years back when hemp buildings were starting to take off. Back then, we learnt of hempcrete's amazing fireproof qualities. David Bryan has since built more than a dozen such houses, using a traditional building method of hempcrete, a mix of lime, water and hurd. That's the inner core of the hemp stalk. This one, southeast of Melbourne, ticks all the boxes for its owners. An environmentally friendly, energy-efficient, stylish home.
It's a very organic feel, isn't it?
It is, yep. It's, well, apart from the organicness of the hemp itself, and the lime is natural. So essentially it's just the lime mixed up with the particles of the hemp, and we create a nice, chunky 300mm wall.
David is using bulker bags of hemp hurd, grown and collected from Gavin Hopkins' farm.
As the energy prices increase, the demand for hemp houses is going to keep increasing because it's a no-brainer as far as energy savings go, particularly with the sustainability.
It's the first time this builder has built in hemp, but he's impressed.
How would it stack up in time-wise and labour component against conventional house? So I guess you don't need plasterboard, all that sort of stuff. So how does it compare?
Yeah, the labour component's probably, compared to bricks, we're only on our 8th day and we're nearly probably more than 3/4 done. So, and then minusing the trades on the inside, it's, yeah, definitely sustainable.
Hemp's potential is being assessed in cotton country, especially as a deep-rooted rotational crop that needs very little water. And it could be processed using existing infrastructure.
So, for example, we recently funded a project that looked at running hemp fibre through a cotton gin. So there's still a little bit more research that's required, but it's really exciting that that's a possibility.
And then, as you know, with ginning, you've got all that other infrastructure that surrounds it, distribution, weighing bridges and, you know, dryers and storage, and that's really what is needed.
Brett Bogue needs no convincing of the merits of hemp. He has a proven track record in China and North America at manufacturing hemp into a range of very robust building and related products.
It's phenomenally tough. We're making products that are way in excess of even the hardest of hardwoods.
Brett's factory east of Melbourne has begun producing a diverse range of hemp products.
They can be flooring, which is waterproof, be used in laundry applications or kitchens. Water does not affect it. We do panels like this, which is for housing. This can be used to lock together. That can be an external wall. We do products like this, which are just decorative panels. They can have any kind of surface finish on them, but they're basically the hemp fibre from underneath.
Yeah. There's everything from hemp matting for insulation or weed mats, even hemp pipes that can replace PVC plastic.
And this one's the most surprising one?
Yes, it is. This is a bulletproof piece of material made purely from the hemp plant.
Brett believes no other plant on the planet can produce so much useful fibre in such a short space of time.
So you'd plant a seed. Within 90 days, the plant's mature and ready for harvesting. We normally give it 100 days to guarantee we've got that full harvested potential. And after 100 days, you've got the full-size plant ready to be processed. And Australia's got the benefit of being able to take possession of all that historical knowledge and start the process from here.
It's a real opportunity to stimulate economic growth and also job creation in communities, in rural communities.
Not many farmers in Australia know how to grow hemp yet, so there's a lot of education to happen. There's a lot of mistakes that are going to occur, but I think that you'll see, say in 10 years' time, there'll be a significant hemp industry as a mainstream agriculture industry, creating value for farmers.
Fibre scientist Stuart Gordon agrees.
We'll still need patience and perseverance, I think. I'm from the cotton industry originally, and I know that, you know, that's a 50, 60-year-old industry here in Australia, but it's a juggernaut now, and I think we ought to look along those timelines rather than in the next 5, 10 years. But we'll certainly make real progress from now on, I think.
G'day, I'm Matt Brand. After months of livestock prices falling, the market got a much-needed boost this week thanks to rain. At Wagga, numbers declined because of the weather and prices shot up. Most lambs lifted $20 to $30 a head, and according to MLA, the National Mutton Indicator's weekly rise of more than 65 cents is the highest on record. So, has the bottom of the sheep market been reached for 2023? Producers will be hoping so. It is worth mentioning there was no sale at Dubbo this week because of the public holiday, which has perhaps skewed these numbers a bit. In the cattle market, the rain didn't lift prices as much, but it certainly stopped the bleeding. The Eckie had its first weekly rise since the middle of August. Now, the rain this week caused harmful flooding in some parts of Victoria, but it also delivered the goods for a lot of grain growers. I spoke to Brett Hoskin, who runs a mixed farming operation at Quambatook, and he says the soaking rain at his place was perfect.
We're sort of, I guess, in that critical grain filling part of the year at the moment. So we were really blessed. We scored 50 mil of rain pretty much across our farm, which will mean that all the potential that is in the paddock will be capitalised on. We're probably 6 weeks off harvest now, and that rain is just ideal for that grain field. So certainly we realise there's a lot of grain farmers that are not in the same position as we are, and our hearts break for them, but it's been a real blessing to us for sure.
Brett, with this rain event, some people completely missed out and some farmers got too much. What sort of stories have you heard?
Yeah, look, we were absolutely blessed. We got our hay baled and stacked last week, quite literally, so a week before the rain. There's a lot of hay still on the ground around our area, and that would have had that 2 inches of rain on it. So, look, hopefully the damage won't be too bad. Ground was dry beforehand, and it's been cool, windy weather ever since, so hopefully that'll dry things out. We've actually, going further east of us, there's been some really big falls. We're talking 100 mil plus. And, for those guys, with the impact on crops, the impact on hay, even, washing away valuable pasture and that sort of thing, we're starting to hear a few stories of damage come out. Hopefully not as bad. Always, in the heat of the moment, things seem worse than they often are. Hopefully the washout isn't as bad as what some of the stories have been.
So overall, how do you hope Victoria's winter crop harvest is shaping up now?
Yeah, look, I think we're looking all right in Victoria. It won't be the record years that we've seen the last couple of years, but it'll still be a solid year. I think average or possibly even a whisper above average yields, which is really good. Conscious that, El Nino is impacting so much of the country, so we are very blessed here in Victoria at the moment and certainly appreciate the season that we've had. And hopefully there'll be opportunities to, support, some of our colleagues in other states by being able to provide things like good quality hay, good quality grain feed to keep valuable livestock alive as well.
And the rain has given sheep and lamb prices a much needed boost, which must be a relief to see, is it?
We sold ours, our older stock probably about 2 or 3 weeks ago. So we've missed this little bit of a boost, but it was at that point where we kind of felt, what do? You've kind of got to, keep moving on and keep sticking to your farming plan, or do you, hopefully try and ride the market? And we just felt stick to the plan and see what we could do. But yeah, the livestock markets, we've got beef cattle here, we've got merinos here as well. Fortunately, the wool hasn't copped quite as big a battering as what some of the meat prices have, but we're certainly feeling it, when you look at our returns this year compared to what they were 12 months ago, and they've just been decimated, and it's purely down to pricing and even demand in the yards and at the abattoirs.
That is Brett Hoskin from Quambatook. So a look at grain prices, and the market eased a little this week. I'm told buyers were sitting back, watching the screens a bit, and the rain is of major interest to see what impact it will have on yields. Here's a look at some barley coming into GrainCorp's receival site at Moree in New South Wales. The region got a little bit of rain and some strong winds this week. Overseas, it was a seesaw week for Chicago wheat futures, which at one stage plunged to a 3-year low off the back of large harvest expectations in the US and in Russia. Fairly steady week for cotton and sugar futures. I'm told that bit of rain around northern New South Wales has been helpful in terms of getting cotton plants established. In the wool market, prices fell at the finer end, but the broader wool types improved in value and supported the benchmark indicator, which AWI says is a rare event. And finally to Rockhampton, which hosted the annual Brahman Week sales. Here's a look at the top price bull, which was sold by the Gunthorpe Cattle Company for $120,000. All up, the 3-day sale grossed more than $7.8 million. The average price a bit over $10,000. And a very impressive clearance rate of 92%. That is the Landline check on prices. Keep it rural.
I'm Christy O'Brien at Bulloo River Station on the Northern Territory West Australian border, where I'm finding out if cattlemen and ecologists can really coexist.
The generation's changing now, and I think a lot more people are taking a little bit more notice of definitely conservation side, but to incorporate pastoral, there is no reason why we can't do that.
In northwest Queensland, distances between tiny outback towns can be hundreds of kilometres. But a bush flying school is changing locals' idea of isolation. Northwest Queensland reporter Julia Andre has the story.
In Queensland's outback, 16-year-old Cash Douglas is preparing for takeoff. He's always loved being in the air and set the wheels in motion for a career in the sky when he enrolled in flight school a year ago. The high school student can't drive a car, but he can fly a plane.
Probably another 4 weeks before I'll get my recreational pilot's licence, and then I'll move to my private and then commercial pilot's licence.
Cash has been learning to fly in his hometown of Cloncurry, a community of just over 2,000 people in the heart of northwest Queensland. Cash has been training with Horizon Airways. Before it set up shop in Cloncurry less than 2 years ago, budding pilots had to fork out thousands of dollars to travel hundreds of kilometres for extended stays in Townsville or Mackay on the coast for lessons. And flying is not a skill you can pick up in one visit.
Obviously, practice makes perfect, really. You might have to go over a particular thing 5-6 times to get it right. So obviously, if you practice on everything, you're going to get right in the end.
Michael Chapman is familiar with that sentiment. The 60-year-old pastor is the bush chaplain for a vast swathe of outback Queensland, extending into the Gulf of Carpentaria. He flies from Birdsville to Mornington Island, visiting cattle stations and remote Indigenous communities, bringing support to those who would otherwise miss out.
It was the vision of John Flynn, that there would be a mantle of safety, the idea that there would be no one who felt like they were inaccessible. There would always be someone who could reach them and offer support, a listening ear, someone who cared.
But Michael is an unlikely pilot and the first to admit he never planned to live in the bush.
It was never on my radar, so to speak. The person before me here was leaving and my boss tapped me on the shoulder and said, "You could do this job, couldn't you?" And he was sort of half joking. And I was happy to keep it as a bit of a joke because I thought, no, I don't think I really want to do that. But he came back to me that night and said, "I know we were joking, but I really want you to think seriously about this." And one thing led to another, and despite a few protests, here we are, yeah.
Michael earned his pilot's licence after a year of lessons with Horizon Airways. In that time, he's embedded himself into Cloncurry's community and understands the challenges of living remotely.
I have a lot of respect for people who live remotely. They're very resilient, very practical. They don't whinge, they just get in and get the job done. But they're people too, so they have hard times as well. It's been, I think, for us, very eye-opening and humbling, and quite a challenge too.
22-year-old Will Hymans is one of 2 flying instructors at the flight school. They split their time between flying private charters and teaching students like Cash and Michael. Will dropped out of his architecture degree to pursue a completely different career. 3 years later, he's now teaching 7 students to fly.
Broad range, so Cash, he's, 16, I think? All the way up to Michael, who's 60. Completely broad range, all different backgrounds. Some of them are miners, from properties, people that just want to fly, from Mount Isa as well, just enthusiasts, so it kind of varies.
Cloncurry weather is stable for most of the year. Rain and storms are rare, so flying lessons are less likely to be cancelled. Will believes that compared to the coast, it's an obvious place to learn to fly.
I think it's kind of a good hub for a lot of people in the area to come to. Even if you live in Mount Isa, probably about a third of my students are from Mount Isa, they can still come here.
Cloncurry is trying to establish itself as an outback aviation hub. The airport is a hive of activity. Mustering helicopters, private charters and commercial flights are constantly touching down and taking off. Flying is an alternate transport in remote parts of the country.
The best way to get somewhere quickly from out here is by air, and with businesses expanding their reach, whether that be family pastoral businesses that now own hundreds of thousands of hectares across the state, or mechanical businesses that have staff and services and customers spread all around the place.
The Shire Council has plans to expand the airport and build new hangars to accommodate the growing number of trainee pilots, and to build on its rich history of aviation.
We were the birthplace of the Royal Flying Doctor Service through Reverend John Flynn and his band of supporters, Alf Traeger, and the range of doctors and nurses that supported that. We were one of the main towns, along with Winton and Longreach, in the foundation of Qantas. And sticking with the aviation theme, we were a major airbase in World War II with the American Air Force. So we're really proud of that aviation history.
This airport is punching well above its weight. Last year, 74,000 people moved through here, many of them travelling to and from surrounding mines. This number is indicative of Cloncurry itself, which is one of the only towns in the region that has a growing population. The Shire is rich in critical minerals, which power renewable energy technology. The council hopes to benefit from the industry's growth and is pushing for new mine workers to live in the community rather than flying in and out. For now, being able to learn a new skill in an unlikely location could be another way to keep Cloncurry's population ticking upwards.
Very exciting. It's probably not for everyone, but if you want to do something that's well and truly out of the ordinary, to be able to do it at home on your doorstep has got to be a great bonus. We've seen an increase in GA, in general aviation. While you were at the airport, you would have seen between half a dozen and a dozen light aircraft parked out on the tarmac, in addition to all the planes parked in hangars.
Keeping passionate young people like Cash living in remote communities is a common challenge in rural Australia, where it's normal for students to move away for boarding school, university or a job. But Cloncurry's developing aviation industry is giving young locals new career opportunities at home.
If you can do it all here, why move away? A lot of people come here to make money, so you're in a perfect location to do so.
Learning to fly isn't cheap. An hour-long lesson can cost around $500. Cash is working 2 jobs in order to pay for them himself. 2 days a week, he works at the Cloncurry Airport as part of an in-school training program as he completes a Certificate 3 in Business Aviation.
So how busy does it get?
Average is about 9 flights a week, and then Qantas have another 7 flights a week on top of that.
So what's your day-to-day then?
So the aircraft is used for FIFO. So we do a lot of, they call them day stays, where the aircraft will come in the morning, it will sit and depart in the afternoon with mining crews.
Hours spent on the tarmac and in the sky are informing Cash's plans post-school. He's mastering the logistical challenges of managing a busy airport, and he's keen to spend more time in the sky.
Hopefully be a pilot, probably a commercial pilot. Flying passenger planes would be pretty cool to do, yeah.
Those around him have no doubt the sky's the limit for Cash's flying career.
He's awesome. I always think about what I was doing when I was 16 compared to Cash. Unreal. Like, he's just progressing so quickly, and he's also very driven, very ambitious, and kind of knows what he wants to do. So Yeah, I always said to him, you're going to be the mayor of Cloncurry one day, so I reckon that'll happen.
And I have to say it, the sky's the limit for that young pilot. And that's the show for today. I look forward to your company next time on Landline. But before we go, here's the weekly weather update from the Bureau. Bye for now.
G'day, Sarah from the Bureau with your weekly weather wrap for Sunday the 8th of October. The past week saw devastating flood impacts for agriculture across parts of eastern Victoria. However, away from the floodwaters, rainfall was a welcomed relief for many farmers across the southeast, following the driest September on record. For today, a frosty start in the southeast, followed by a mostly dry and clear day, thanks to a high to our south that has allowed floodwaters to recede. Showers and storms developing across parts of Western Queensland. Heat building across southwest WA. Showers for the Queensland and New South Wales coasts. On Monday, a frosty start for inland areas of the southeast. Showers and storms becoming more widespread over Western Queensland and extending southwards into northwest New South Wales as that inland trough deepens. Hit and miss storms may be slow moving and produce localised heavy bursts of rain. On Tuesday, showers and storms continuing through southern Queensland and inland northern New South Wales, with showers extending into eastern New South Wales as well. Dry lightning for southern parts of WA ahead of a showery cold front pushing across the southwest. Isolated showers for the Queensland east coast. Warm conditions extending across the south on Wednesday in the northwesterlies ahead of the front. Isolated showers for northeast New South Wales, the tropical Queensland coast and south coast of WA. On Thursday, hot, dry and windy across the southeast ahead of a cold front, shifting cooler southwesterly and bringing showers and storms. Out in the west, a building high will bring settled conditions. For Friday, cool, showery conditions continuing for the southeast, while the high will move into the bight, bringing mostly dry and clear skies for the remainder, warming in the west as that heat trough deepens. And that's it for our weekly weather wrap. We'll see you again next time. Bye for now.